Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. I'm your host, Shana. Man, it has been a busy week, but we're here today. It's Rapid Fire Friday. We see a call already coming into the queue. The number, if you want to get in there, 610-363-1110. Hopefully we'll have a Rapid Fire Friday sort of show. We've got a lot of things to talk about today, though. The latest market updates, the economic headlines, of course, my reaction to Trump's big win. We'll also get to a lot of your questions. I know we have one that we're going to talk about today about converting a Roth IRA. So if you've got questions about any or all of that, 610-363-1110 is the phone number. Assume that Seth and Sam did a great job holding down the fort this week talking about the election, but I'm glad to be back with you guys today.
We're grateful to have you back. It was nice to have something to talk about that hopefully could be a service to the partners, but man, we're excited for the outcome, but even more excited to have you back.
Great.
Yep.
Well, at Financial Issues, we help you to stay in the know about the financial issues of the day. We help keep you abreast of what's happening in the economy and the markets and help you understand how that impacts your own personal financial issues as a Christian who wants to put God first in everything that they do. So lots of takeaways from this week. It was a very, very busy week. First and foremost, center stage is the election. It was too big to rig. I'm happy to say, this is something I'm happy to say that I was wrong about. I did not expect that we would get the election results that soon. I did not expect that there to be so much election integrity. I expected cheating. I think we did see some attempts here and there, but they were crushed really quickly. So I'm sure you all are very aware of this, but just as a recap, Donald Trump won both the popular vote and the electoral vote. There's two states that still are lagging in their efforts to get their votes turned in, which is a crying shame. It should not be so in America. But this makes the first time that a non-incumbent Republican has won the popular vote this century. Trump got approximately, and I guess still counting, 73 million votes compared to the 62 million that he got in 2016 and the 74 million that he got in 2020. Interestingly enough, Kamala Harris got approximately 69 million votes, I guess, and there's still some counting, I guess, versus in 2020, Joe Biden got 81 million votes. I wonder how Joe Biden got so many more votes than Kamala. I would say that my explanation is obviously that we didn't have quite the election integrity in 2020 that we had this year. May get us kicked off of some social media for saying that, but it's what I think. Trump has 295 electoral votes as of right now. Harris, 226. Now, Arizona has 11 electoral votes. They're still outstanding. As far as we know, Trump is in the leads with about by 130,000 at this point, up 52% to 46 over Harris, with 76% of the vote counted. And they're saying it may take another week to get everything done. Arizona, you need to get it together. You need to have some election reform in your country. I mean, there are states that are far bigger than you. There's California, there's Texas, there's Florida. Not a problem. We all got our votes counted and turned in the night of the election. So if you live in Arizona, hey, get involved in that process. And Nevada is also in that camp as well. Trump is expected to win both of those, bringing his total just to blowout numbers. So are Democrats, with a mind that's not completely blinded by their ideology about abortion and socialism, actually becoming election deniers? Well, I saw a post that we have been trying to verify the validity of, but supposedly it was posted by a Democrat with all of the election numbers, all of the total votes on both sides for the elections going all the way back to 2004. So presidential elections every 4 years went something like 121 million votes, 129, 126, 128. Then we get to 2020 and we had 155 million votes. So far this cycle, which to me was way more publicized than any other election in history, 142, just 142. So 142 million so far. So what do I attribute this to? Well, I think Laura Trump and Michael Whatley, the RNC chairs, did a great job bringing back election integrity. I've read 5,000 volunteer lawyers that were recruited by the RNC to be on standby. Some of them did have to do their job. They did have to go to court and get injunctions to promote election integrity in some cases. And just the guys in the studio today told me that Pennsylvania, they had a lawyer in every township. In addition to all of this, there were 230,000 poll watchers that were recruited by the RNC. I think the Republicans were very underrepresented. Poll watchers were very underrepresented in the last election. And, a big shout out to Scott Pressler. Scott Pressler, in case you didn't know, is the openly gay co-founder of Gays for Trump. This, homophobic president-elect. So how did he get gays to support him? Well, I think they understand. They rejected the rhetoric that was being said about Trump. And he went out, I've heard, and got 180,000 Amish in Pennsylvania registered to vote. And that, I believe, helped Trump win Pennsylvania. I guess we got to get to the other big news this week. The Fed yesterday announced their interest rate decision. They cut 25 basis points to interest rates, as was very widely expected. Their press statement was very much the same as the last one when it came to their other two mandates. So it was a little bit, there wasn't a lot of explanation for the 25 basis point cut other than just much of the same of last month. Now, they said that they still are planning to return to their 2% target for inflation, and they believe that they are on track to do so. Unemployment looks like they're not the only ones in concession mode. They are starting to concede to the softness that we have been reporting that is in the labor market. But I don't believe to the extent that they're really being consistent with reality quite yet. So yesterday, Powell said about the labor markets, he said, since earlier in the year, labor market conditions have generally eased and the unemployment rate has moved up but remains low, versus in September when he said job gains have slowed and the unemployment rate has moved up but remains low. So he's moved from the labor market being generally eased versus job gains having slowed. What was new in the press conference? Well, Powell was asked many questions about the incoming Trump administration. I don't believe it's any secret that they are not each other's hugest fans. Regarding fiscal policy, Powell was asked about that with an incoming administration. Of course, the reporter asking the question was insinuating that Trump was going to add a lot of debt to the country. He was going to spend a lot of money. And Powell said that we are, as a country, the debt level is not unsustainable. So our almost $37 trillion debt as a country is not unsustainable, but the current path is. Okay, with debt being sustainable at $37 trillion, but he's worried about spending. And he should be. He should be worried about both. 3 years ago, we paid $300 billion in interest a year on our debt. Now, $1.1 trillion in rising just on interest on the debt. He said full employment is expected to continue. Full employment, of course, is unemployment number under 5%. And he sees inflation returning to 2%. One reporter asked him why people don't feel good about disinflation, the disinflation trend that is being celebrated by the Fed. And he said, well, it's going to take years of real wage gains for people to actually feel better about the higher prices that they have right now. So real wage gains means raises significantly above inflation. Well, there's much more that happened this week, but we're going to have to leave it at that for now because we've got to take a break. Don't go anywhere, though. We'll be back after this break with more financial issues.
Pharrell came to Crossroads as a fourth grader. His name had been brought to my attention by the school principal. She was concerned about the direction he was heading.
I remember I wasn't the best kid. I got into trouble a lot.
He became a very active part of Crossroads Kids Club.
Mr. Engel, he was the leader that really impacted my life in so many ways. I honestly didn't want Crossroads to end.
We would invite all the students to come to our youth group here at Waterfront.
I felt God saying, come on, come to me. It felt like I was set free.
And I'll never forget the day when we had the privilege and the honor to baptize Pharrell.
I hugged Mr. Engel. I don't know if he understands. I'm truly, thankful to have him through the whole journey. If it wasn't for Crossroads, I probably wouldn't be in the place that I am right now. I wouldn't be a follower of Christ.
Help reach more kids like Pharrell with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachOurSchools.com.
How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. I'm your host, Shana Burke. I got a few more thoughts that I want to add to the things that happened this week. So in regards to the Fed's interest rate decision and the press conference that followed, Powell was asked a lot of questions about the incoming Trump administration. And, it's not a secret to anybody that they are not big fans of one another. One reporter asked him, would he resign early, but that is before his the end of his term, which is, I believe, is somewhere mid-2026. If Trump asked him to resign, would he do so? And he said no. Emphatically, he said no. Then again, he was asked, would he resign, and did he think that Trump would be able to sort of force the issue because, the Fed chair is nominated by the president but confirmed by Congress. And he was asked about it again, and what his take on that was it possible for Trump to remove him or other Fed officials before their term ended? And he emphatically said and had to repeat, not permitted by law. He seemed a little bit angry when he said that.
That's interesting. Shana, with the presumption that the Republicans will win the Senate as well and possibly the House too, could Trump use that? Would it be within the realms of the legal parameters to be able to get the Senate involved if he did want to oust Powell?
Sure. I guess anything's possible. Whatever you can get through Congress that doesn't get struck down by the Supreme Court and signed by the president. Signed through Congress, signed by the president, and not overturned by the Supreme Court is possible. I wouldn't wouldn't hurt my feelings at all to see major changes to the structure of the Fed.
Yeah.
So, but of course, the Fed is not political. They operate. They're an independent. They're independent of the political system. They're supposed to be nonpartisan and all of that. But now that I'm looking back, I thought that the 50 basis point cut, the huge basis point cut, the surprise to the upside cut that we got at the last Fed meeting, the one before this week, was motivated by efforts to make the Biden administration and the Biden-Harris administration look good and maybe help Kamala's chances to win. But now, I can't help but wonder, was Powell expecting a Trump win and went out ahead and just got those 50 basis points out of the way because he knows that Trump does like cheap money. Trump is going to probably pound the tables just like he did before for rate cuts. So what did the markets think? Well, the markets loved the Trump win. The S&P 500, it's pre-market now on Friday morning. But so far this week, the S&P 500 is up 4.2% week to date. The NASDAQ up 6.25% and the Dow up over 4% as well. So at least for the next 4 years, our democratic republic is safe. Capitalism is safe and maybe has a chance at somewhat of a comeback from where it's been beaten down. Babies in the womb are safer. Our paychecks will be a little bit safer, maybe even an abolition of the income tax. I think that's a long shot, but a very welcoming thought to most people.
Yeah.
Our country will be a little safer as the southern border is closed up and criminals are deported and kicked off of government payrolls. Big round of applause for that. Well, now you're in the know about the recent and upcoming financial issues. Next week on tap, we've got inflation numbers coming out and retail sales. Can't help but wonder if the unelected bureaucrats who cook the books or not cook the books, but report the numbers.
Sorry, YouTube, if you're listening.
For the Biden administration are going to start coming clean about the reality of the state of our economy since, Trump is coming in. That'll be very, very interesting to follow. Well, we do have, let's get to our stewardship verse of the day really quickly. It comes from John 16:33. I have told you these things so that in me you have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Now, this verse contains my least favorite promise of Jesus. In this world you will have trouble. But he doesn't give us long to worry about that bad news. He follows it with the most wonderful news that he overcame the world. And what are these things that Jesus just told them? Well, he had just told his disciples that he was about to leave them to go to the Father and that they would face persecution and some of them even death for their belief in him. But Jesus gives them and us the path to peace in the midst of this terrible, fallen world. The answer is to stay connected to Jesus, because in Jesus alone, we will find peace. What do you think, Seth?
That's great, Shana. So full disclosure, Shana, and for all of our listeners too, I try to prepare our show notes several days in advance so we have time to look them over and kind of mull them over a bit. And of course, I picked this verse before the election, so I was feeling I was feeling somewhat nervous. I just wasn't sure which way this was going to go. And, I was really hoping that no matter which way this went, we could still get some great encouragement from it. The reminder, like you said, it's a tough reminder that you will have trouble, but then Jesus gives us that wonderful take heart, a military command, I've overcome the world. We will face trials and pain in this life, Shana, that's true, but we got to remember who's victorious and who's overcome the world. And I say that's even true in victory and defeat as well. In defeat, we can tend to despair. And in victory, sometimes the tendency is to get puffed up with pride or put our hope in the wrong things. No matter what happens, we put our hope in Jesus Christ alone. That phrase, be of good cheer, that he says, again, that's more of a military phrase. It's the picture is a commander rallying his men to battle in the heat of battle. So I would hope that it would be said of us that we would also be of good cheer as we listen to not any of the voices around us, but ultimately the commands of our captain, Jesus Christ.
Yes, and I may have been a little bit remiss. All of the glory goes to God. God is the one that gave us this victory. God is the one who has given America a reprieve. And, we as followers of Christ need to take that opportunity seriously. This is not just about a political leader on the earth. This is about a repentance and a turning of the hearts of men to Jesus. And that's what we want to be instrumental in doing. And the main way that we do that, of course, is by helping people with their investments to honor God in the way that they invest. All right, let's see if we can squeeze this caller in. We've got Billy calling from the red state of Georgia. Hey, Billy, you're live on Financial Issues.
Hi, good morning, Ms. Shana and Seth.
Hey, Billy.
Thank you, by the way, for your insights on the daily verse. But anyway, my question is that I have UT52, and I received some shares from a spin-off from UT52, so I just wanted to know what to do with it.
Just hang on to it for now. It takes a little bit of time to see if a company that spun off is going to remain biblically responsible. So that's one set of issues. The other is that we just, it takes a little bit of time to see which assets, which liabilities are spun off with the company and how they're going to employ those resources going forward. So just hang on to it for now. If we need you to sell it, we'll send out a sell alert.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's all I got.
Great rapid fire Friday question.
Thank you, Billy.
Okay, then. Bye-bye.
All right.
That's great. Speaking of Rapid Fire Friday, Shana, we've got another question here that we can get to about converting an IRA to a Roth from Jay, if you want to get to this one.
Let's do it.
So Jay is saying, I've been hearing a lot about converting an IRA to a Roth. Would Shana address this again for us, specifically those who are over 70 and retired? Shana, what would you have for Jay concerning this?
Yep. So what I've talked about for a long time, and I think, even prior to me hosting the show when Dan was doing it, he talked about this a lot too, the belief that taxes are going to be higher in the future than what they are today. There's brand new news on the scene that, Donald Trump may endorse getting rid of income tax altogether. He's wanting to eliminate income tax on Social Security, tips, overtime, first responders, compensation, all kind of things. And then finally just came out and said, well, let's just get rid of the whole income tax. Now, who knows if that's going to go anywhere? That's still a big wild card. So I think for now, it's still a good idea to look at things the way that we have been, especially if you're in the 12% tax bracket and you have any room to do to take any more income at 12%, I would strongly consider doing this. So that's kind of the first thing that you want to look at. You got to figure out where that limit is for income based on your tax filing status and the income that you already have that you'll be adding to, because for this year, none of the things that are being talked about as far as taxes is even going to apply. And perhaps even next year, because it does literally take an act of Congress to get the tax law changed. So we're still operating under the same premises. We've still got almost $37 trillion in debt. We've still got a $2 trillion budget deficit from the current administration for just for this 1 year. The current administration's added, I think it's $9 trillion in debt. If you break that down per citizen, it's cost us we've gone $55,000 in debt for every person in the United States to let Joe and Kamala try their hand at running the country. And what have we gotten for it? We've gotten prices that are at least, according to government numbers, 20% higher. If you want to look at some real numbers, it's probably closer to 40 or 50% higher. We've got mortgage rates that are almost triple what they were when Trump left office. We've got housing prices that are up 40 to 50%. And all of that, we only paid $55,000 per person for. So, there's still big problems with our country. The hard work is just now beginning. So for this year, before the end of the year, I would consider doing that. A Roth conversion is when you move money from your IRA that is all pre-tax money into a Roth. Now, you've got to pay taxes on that money when you do it, so you want to be strategic. You want to avoid triggering that IRMA tax, which is for For either single or married, it's once you get a little bit over into the 24% bracket. So that causes your Medicare premiums to increase. You want to try to stay underneath that strategically. But what it does is it gives you the opportunity to potentially pay a lower tax today than you would in the future. And, that's what you want to consider if you're in that very, very low tax bracket. If you're in the 22% tax bracket, maybe you want to do some, but, there is, I guess, that future possibility, I won't even call it a probability, that income taxes could go away. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. But, well, folks, we're at the halfway mark for the show. If you're only listening to an outlet that carries the short version of the show, we wish you a farewell today. For the rest of you, though, hang around. We're going to be back with more financial issues right after this break.
It's a challenging world that we live in right now. There's a lot of corporations that frankly stand for some pretty evil things. We need to be responsible stewards of our money, putting it in companies that will support our values.
If you are interested in equipping yourself to engage in the culture, I would just highly recommend availing yourself of the Ministry of Financial Issues.
That was probably the best decision that we ever made.
Align your investments with your faith. Become an FISM partner today at financialissues.org.
But I felt very comfortable in that decision because I found a lot of support. Like everyone here, always made sure keep in contact with me. This is what ultimately changed my decision. Knowing that I had all this support that I didn't know I had. Now that he's here, he's 4 months old. I look at him and I honestly it just makes me want to cry.
Remember the good old days when companies stuck to just selling their products rather than using their profits to push an agenda? When you invest in a company, you become an owner of that company. And more businesses are now using your money to fund woke projects. We're called to be good stewards of all we have, and that includes ensuring your investments align with your biblical values. Thankfully, that's where Financial Issues can help. For over 25 years, Financial Issues has stood as a leader of biblically responsible investing, encouraging the body of Christ to keep funds out of companies that dishonor God. We provide Christian investors with the tools they need to build fiscally and biblically responsible portfolios. We're at the forefront of the fight, helping you not only with your finances, but advocating for truth and godly wisdom. For more information, go to financialissues.org. That's financialissues.org.
Initially, when we became members, I thought, what if this doesn't work? I mean, we're going to give up this whole concept of insurance, and we're going to trust God and His people. And it was like, yeah, well, of course. I'm going to trust an insurance company to come through for me, or I'm going to trust the church to come through for me. And that's a no-brainer. I love getting the monthly share that I give to each month that has the name of a real person and their real medical concerns and a prayer request, for them. If I have a need, I know I can go get care. I can see the providers I want to see. I don't have to worry if they're in my network. And if we need medical care, Samaritan is there.
A community of Christians paying one another's medical bills. For more information, go to financialissues.org and click the Samaritan Ministries banner.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. I'm your host, Shana Burt. Thanks for sticking with us today. It is Rapid Fire Friday, and we've got some people listening and calling in. So let's get to some of those calls right now. We've got Cindy calling from the red state of North Carolina. Hi, Cindy. You're live on Financial Issues.
Hi, Shana. Thank you. I was just calling to ask, I have a CD that's coming due this week, and I was just wondering what to do with it, whether to go back and something safe or can I invest it in some stocks. It's $50,000.
Okay, so the place to start is with your portfolio tracker. So I would suggest going in and updating your tracker with all your current values, and instead of putting the CD in the fixed income category, just add the amount, that $50,000, to your cash, and then look at your output and see, where are you going to be heavy, where are you going to be light at this point. And so, if it tells you, hey, you're really going to be underweighted in the technology sector, then maybe you need to look at some technology stocks. If you're going to be, underweighted in another sector, maybe that's where you need to look. If you're still going to be underweighted in fixed income, I would check CD rates or treasury rates on the short end, probably nothing longer than a 2-year. And then you could consider doing that. You should, if you laddered all of your CDs out, you should have some money coming due every 6 months. Now, we are working on some minor tweaks to the asset allocation models. It's not going to be anything radical, but if you're pretty evenly weighted in most things, I would just consider leaving it in cash for right now.
Okay, thank you so much, Hannah.
All right, Cindy, great Rapid Fire Friday question.
Thanks, Cindy.
All right, let's go. Is Leith ready?
Yeah, I believe Leith is ready.
Leith calling from Alabama. Hi, Leith. You're live on Financial Issues.
How are y'all?
Doing great.
Feeling great, Leith.
All right. My question today was about our IRAs and how does losses and gains, really affect, or is there really anything that really affects them, in a regular IRA, not a Roth?
Not really. So, assuming that most of the money or all of the money that you put into your IRA was pre-tax money, meaning that you got a tax break when you put it in, you're going to pay taxes on all of the money when it comes out as income tax. So you don't have to worry. There's no even tax reporting for increases or decreases in positions if you sell things in your IRA. So it's all subject to income tax at this point when you start to take it out.
Okay, that should help folks feel a little better when they IRA. It's not like your regular, investment account. You kind of really see or have the impact of it. But I know sometimes I struggle when a sell alert is given, and I'm going, well, it's down at the moment, and I don't want to take a loss. But we're really not taking a loss. We're just really, I guess in one way, we're saying, well, we're not going to pay Uncle Sam that gain or any gain on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's, you don't pay gains or you're not able to take losses in the IRA. But, and I get what you're saying. There's a lot of people have that resistance when there's a sell alert that comes out if they're down in a position. But, perhaps that's the reason for the sell alert. Sometimes a stock will go down for reasons that we didn't expect. So maybe things have taken a change for the worse for that company, and it's time to just move on. And so what you have to think about is you have to think about your portfolio as a whole and not get super focused on any one position. And you can also sort of think of that as a sideways move. So, a lot of times the advice that I give to people whenever they're having those reservations, like I don't want to sell anything that's down, I want to try to wait for it to come back. I ask the question, if the money that you have invested in that particular stock you had in cash today, would you invest it in the stock that you're in already, or would you invest it in something else? And so if the answer is, well, I would invest it in something else if I had the choice to do this or that today, then that is a lot of times probably the most logical answer, and helps move people along and being able to sell that position. So, it's never a good idea to get super emotionally attached to a position or, get kind of dug in just because you're up or down in a position either.
I agree, and I can definitely testify that the hesitation, just go ahead and do it, get it done, and you'll sleep better over it. And because I end up, if I don't do one, I end up watching it, hoping it'll go up, and then, but you're right, it's better to just kind of consider it a sideways and say, well, we can put it in something that'll grow better.
Yeah. Right. And, we don't always have, we always have hindsight, but we don't always have foresight. So, we have to make the best decisions that we can with the information that we have available. And, that's what we're trying to do.
That is true. Well, thank y'all so much. Hope y'all have a blessed weekend.
Thanks, Lee.
You too, Lee. God bless you, buddy.
All right. Well, former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin has laid out a little bit of Trump's plan. I think do we still have that clip available?
Yeah, you know what, Shana? We might be button up close to the ag to actually play the clip. We might have to save the clip for the next segment.
I forgot about the ag. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Well, we'll wait there.
Sure.
Can we get to maybe a question?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got a new investor here, Shana. This is a great question from Oscar, age 28, is saying, I'm still new to investing in the stock market. I'd like to know how to choose a company to invest in. Are there any specific criteria to consider? And does it matter which company I choose or any company listed on the buy list is a viable option? Thanks for your help. What would you have for Oscar, Shana? That's a good question.
Oscar's 28. That is great.
Yeah. Well done, buddy. Nice.
Yep. It's great that you're getting started. So you have a lot of investor life ahead of you. So the key thing here is diversification. So you're going to want to build a diversified portfolio, but you've got to start somewhere, and the somewhere that you got to start is with one stock. So what I would do is take a look at the asset allocation model that you're going into. I think at 28 years old, you can safely focus on growth stocks. They're going to be more volatile than some of the, fixed income or even the growth in income companies that you might choose. But you've got plenty of time to get in, to add to your positions, and to recover. So I would suggest that you consider being aggressive in building your portfolio. Now I'm talking to Oscar because he's 28 years old, so don't take this in if you're 78 and don't apply it to yourself. So what I would do is look at the asset allocation models that you're going to be following, and look at the one that has the highest allocations, probably going to be technology. Then I would go to the technology buy list, and I would start by just reading the descriptions of all of the companies and what they do, and then just making a decision. Making a decision for one position. Get started in that. Learn about that company. Follow the news on that company, and that'll help you get a really good understanding of the things that you're adding into your portfolio as you go. So, and then when you get the next amount of money saved up, go in and look at the next sector that has the highest allocation and add a position there, and just sort of rotate through all of that until you get a diversified portfolio built up. Well, folks, we've got Craig Haugaard on deck. He's going to give us the Ag Report. After Craig, we're going to take a short break, and we will come back with more Rapid Fire
This is
Friday.
Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for November 8th. The corn posted a higher close, driven in part by weekly export numbers, which at 108.9 million bushels was above the top end of trade expectation. Now, today, the trade is going to be focused on the monthly USDA supply and demand report, which comes out at high noon Eastern Time. Yesterday's close found December corn a penny and a quarter higher at 427.5. Soybeans had a very strong close yesterday with double-digit gains across the board. Helping drive the rally was very strong weekly export numbers of 74.9 million bushels, and 60% of that went to China. At the closing bell, January beans were 22.5 cents higher at 1026.25. Wheat futures were lower across the three markets in another uneventful session. The price pressure seems to come as a result of the updated drought map, which showed improvements across a large portion portion of winter wheat acres, with more rain still to come. At the closing bell, Minneapolis December wheat was 3 cents lower at 6.02 and a half. Kansas City dropped by a nickel to close at 5.69, and Chicago was a penny and 3/4 cents lower at 5.71 and a half. Cotton futures had a nice bounce, although they still remain range bound. At the close, we had December futures up 136 points as they ended the day at 71.05. Livestock futures turned in a mixed performance. December live cattle were 42.5 cents higher at $185.82.5 per hundredweight. January feeder cattle were 30 cents better as they settled at $244.32.5 per hundred. December lean hog futures gave up some ground, dropping 92.5 cents, ending the day at $81.20 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures found some speculative buying after they broke through the support level at $19. At that point, buying entered the market and lifted milk futures up to a higher close. In fact, we had December futures up 21 points at the closing bell, settling at 19.21. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Kids need the hope of Jesus. There's so much loneliness, brokenness, isolation, and bullying. Now you and I, we have the opportunity to do exactly what Jesus said, to go and make disciples, right where they are, right inside their public school. The Lord has been building the impact of Crossroads Kids Club, and we ask for your help to pursue a vision of greater national expansion.
To join us, visit reachourschools.com. That's reachourschools.com.
I actually called the clinic thinking that it was an abortion clinic. I knew that at the time my partner wasn't going to be involved. I did want SUSAT, but I was having financial problems. And I was like, I don't need an appointment. They're like, just come in and we'll help you. And so I went in and that practically changed my life. I had not been sleeping in. I remember being able to sleep that night because I knew that something was going to happen. I was able to carry Suzette full term and have her. I'm extremely happy that I did not get an abortion. I don't think I would be here today, or my daughter. I don't think I would ever sacrifice as much as I did because I feel that I did it for her. And if it wasn't that people that supported me, I don't think I would have ever been here.
When God calls us to follow him, it starts as a personal conviction.
When I realized what I had been investing my money in, God immediately convicted my heart.
But as we experience the joy that comes from following God, we encourage others to join us in our journey.
If anybody's listening, thinking about joining, there's nothing like it.
As more people join us, our impact for Christ compounds.
Align your investments with your faith. Become an FISM partner today at financialissues.org.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for sticking with us. We've got Rapid Fire Friday here. The number, if you want to get into the call queue, is 610-363-1110. And we might have time for one more caller after we get to Matt. Matt's calling from Minnesota. Hi, Matt. You're live on Financial Issues.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning,
Matt.
First, I've been with Financial Issues probably about 6 years, roughly. Probably one of the hardest things when I was a first member would be when Dan said to sell, and I reluctantly didn't sell. And everybody knows that story. Should have sold, should have followed it, and that's probably the biggest thing to follow what you guys say, and you will do very well on there. But
awesome.
My question is the X date on dividend-paying stocks. When you purchase, let's say you purchase the day before the X date, do you get the dividend, or is it the settlement date that really counts?
The settlement date doesn't really matter. The X date is actually the date that the company goes ex dividend, and that means that typically the stock price will adjust and start trading for less just about what the dividend is going to be. The key date, though, is the record date, because the record date, if you're looking at the dates for dividends, the record date is the date that the companies start to look at their their roster of who owns shares, and that's who's going to receive the dividend. So, I don't think it's a super important factor in making a decision, but great rapid fire Friday question.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, brother.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too.
You too. All right, let's get to Richard. Richard's calling from my home state, Texas. Hi, Richard. You're live on Financial Issues.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning, Richard.
Thank you for all y'all do. I had a follow-up question. You just spoke to the gentleman. I think he was 70 years old, and you were recommending he could change or transfer or convert IRAs to Roths. I was under the impression that you had to be having earned income in order to contribute to Roths, but is conversion a different thing? I mean, can you do that once you're retired? Because I'm over 70 and retired, so...
Yes, it is two totally separate things. So you do have to have earned income to be able to contribute to a Roth, which is a much lower limit. There is no limit on the amount of conversion that you can do. So you can convert any amount. Now, you do want to be careful of those tax triggers that I mentioned. And also you need to know that there's a 5-year rule to qualify for the tax treatment on the Roth IRAs. So you want to make sure you probably have some other money, other places that you can draw out. But you have to have the Roth open for 5 years. So if you have an existing Roth, maybe, or a Roth that you opened any time in the past, if it's more than 5 years old, that can help you qualify for that 5-year rule.
Okay. So the minimum distribution rules not apply to the Roths like they do for the IRAs?
Correct. There are no required minimum distributions on the Roths.
Okay. Well, that's really... this is what I love you guys for. It's the education you give me every day. I'm always finding out something new.
Awesome, Richard.
Yeah, great. Thanks for calling, Richard.
Thank y'all very much.
Yeah, Richard, thank you, brother. Appreciate your partnership, man.
Oh, you bet. Bye-bye.
Absolutely.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, I guess a little more Trump talk to wind out the program today.
Yeah.
Former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, we have a clip of him as he talks about Trump's economic plan.
The top priority I would suggest is extending the Trump tax cuts, signature part of his program. I think that should be easy to pass in Congress, particularly if the Republicans control the House as well, which it looks like it will be. The second thing is I would make sure that all the sanctions are restored. The sanctions on Iran and Russia were very impactful. In the case of Iran, they're now selling millions of barrels of oil, which needs to be stopped. And the third part is reenacting his trade agenda. I think that tariffs do need to be used to get counterparties back to the table, especially China, which is not living up to all of the agreements they made in the Phase 1 trade agreement.
Right. Yeah, interesting here, Shana. What do you think that could mean for a Trump economy, hearing that?
Well, is the show over?
The show's still going, folks.
All right. So, I think Mnuchin did say he would be willing to serve as Treasury Secretary again under Trump administration if he were asked.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think it took a lot of hard work to get election integrity back, to get to where we are with a Trump win back of the Senate. And, I guess it's looking like, we don't exactly know yet, but it's looking like a majority possibly in the House as well. I mean, if that's the case, I think I'm very hopeful for the outlook of this country, for the restoration of a lot of our and the continuation of a lot of our freedoms that we treasure so much, and for the economy. But I think there's a lot of hard work that lies ahead. And I think that there's a lot of potentially painful work that has to happen. So, I've heard people saying, well, he needs to take it slow and easy and let some of these things integrate in. But you know what? I don't think he's got a lot of time to go slow and easy. I mean, we just finished this election. We're already looking down the road to the midterm elections. And, if history serves as a guide, the incumbent party typically tends to lose seats in a midterm election. So, a lot of people say, we've got 4 years to do a lot of things. And I would submit to you, we've got 2 years. So, there's a lot of pain, I think, that's going to come with some of the necessary things that have to be done. But if anyone has a chance of getting these things done, I think that President Trump does. Lowering taxes and insisting on fiscal responsibility is going to force a reduction in the size of government. That will result in removal of a lot of restrictions that has potentially been holding the private markets back. And, lowering taxes, or even if abolishing taxes, if that were possible, returns fiscal decisions back to people. So it shows that Trump and the Trump administration trust people who actually make the money to make decisions about how they actually spend the money, rather than having the government collect that money and then redistributing it according to what the government thinks is important for the people. People are far more efficient at the deployment of our funds than the government is. There's no doubt about that. I mean, there's study after study after study that has proven that to be true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff, Shana. We heard Steve Mnuchin there just mentioning the tariffs that might be needed to get China in particular back to the table, as it were. We actually got a question from Claude recently kind of asking, how would it work to replace income tax with tariffs, kind of looking at some of the things that Trump has pledged to do?
Well, I don't have the answer to that. That's a far broader question. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in there. Just the preliminary numbers that I've heard is that tariffs would only replace a fraction of the revenue that's brought in by income taxes. So I think the balance of that, I think what the Trump agenda says is that they want to eliminate income taxes, because that's going to put way more money back in people's pockets. For the average American family, I've heard numbers ranging, $20,000 to $30,000 a year putting back into their pockets. I mean, just go look at your last tax return and see what you paid in taxes, and imagine having the ability to make decisions on what is bought with that money, rather than allowing the government to do that. So, putting all of that money back into taxpayers' hands, into consumers' hands. What do you think that's going to do? They're going to spend a lot of that. Some of them might actually have an opportunity to be able to afford a house now if they don't have to pay all that money in income taxes. So, I think the difference will have to be made up by growing the economy, because, corporations are still going to pay taxes, so there's revenue there. And if you're growing the economy, that means that corporations grow their revenues. If people are spending their money in the economy, rather than having government waste 40% of it and then spend 60% of it, a lot of that money goes directly into the economy. So, I'm very hopeful. I'm very excited to see what this new administration is going to do, and I have 100% confidence that they're going to hit the floor running in January. There's going to be a lot of things that happen on the first day. I think Washington is going to be rejuvenated, and the people have spoken. We've sent a very, very clear mandate about what we like and what we don't like, and so it is the job of the government to execute the will of the people. And it is my hope and my prayer that they will do just that. Well, folks, we have come to the end of the program today. We know that there wasn't any commentary posted this week. It's been an enormously busy week for our team here, but we will be back on track this coming week with new additions to the buy list. Well, folks, we hope that you have a wonderful weekend, a great day of worship on Sunday, and that you come back next week for more financial issues, because Lord willing, we'll be here to remind you time's getting short, the Master's coming back, and we want to help you be found good and faithful stewards. I'm your host, Shana Burt. Find out more about our ministry at financialissues.org.
we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.